Hello everyone, so this time I would like to share a video on how to put avatar's hand in a pocket. I will show a few steps that I usually use in my workflow. In general, I really like this detail because it really makes your avatar look a little bit more alive, more relaxed, as well as it adds additional dimension to your 3D clothing. So I definitely recommend adding hand in the pocket detail to your poses. Anyway, let's start. So here I have just the regular default avatar and I have some pants and a top. Regarding the clothes avatar, as you probably know, they don't have the most delicate hands, especially the men's ones I think are quite huge. However, if you use as avatars, usually they have quite delicate hands, and I think it's easier to put those hands in the pockets naturally. And at least from my experience, it is a quicker process than trying to make these CLO avatars' hands work and look nice. However, of course, it's totally doable. So when it comes to the overall setup, there are several things to keep in mind. First of all, the avatar itself, you should reduce the skin offset to 0, just because if you have it on 3, that's the value that comes as default value. Then there's a lot of like buffer space around the avatar, so that means the hand actually becomes a little bit bigger. So 3 millimeter around the hand, the extra buffer, so that means it becomes bigger, so it stretches out the pocket much more. So keep in mind, make sure it's on 0, as well as reduce the additional thickness collision from 2.5 to maybe 1.51 or 0.5, depends what kind of details you have in your garment. So for example, here I have added additional thickness rendering of 1, so I use additional thickness collision of 1. And the reason is the same as for the avatar. If you have 2.5 millimeter, that means the software tries to keep this 2.5 millimeter buffer around the pattern piece, which means there will be more collision issues and the pocket will look more stretched out and less natural. So these are two things to definitely look out for. And as well, reduce particle distance. This depends on your machine, of course. If you have a very powerful computer, it shouldn't be a problem. But it will work with particle distance 20, of course. But I suggest to work with particle distance 10. Then there will be less collision issues, I believe. Depends on your situation. And another thing is about the pocket size itself and the fit of the pants or the skirts or whatever you have created. Since the hand is as big, usually I make the pocket a little bit bigger than whatever would fit, for example, my hand. I'm not like expert in pockets at all, and usually when I create pockets, I just measure the pants that I have already, and then I use those measurements. But for closed avatar hands, I use the pockets slightly bigger. So for example, opening for this pocket is 18 centimeter. And because this pant is not like tight fitted, but it's also not super oversized, especially like this top part, it's like falling on the body nicely, but there's not like extra space, especially in the hip area. And I also have to think about the fabric. For example, if you have linen pants and if that linen has no stretch in the fabric, but in the 3D simulation, when you put the hand in the pocket, it looks really stretched, then of course the whole harmony is kind of lost and the whole realism of the pant is lost. Because if something is stretching that shouldn't be stretching, then that's a problem. Yeah, so definitely think about the fabric, the silhouette of the pants, the size of the pocket, because it all kind of goes together. And in this specific case, I can also share one tip when it comes to tucked in items. For example, if you have a shirt like this and it's tucked in the pants, in every case, not only in the case where I put the hand in a pocket, I usually chop off like the extra part of the shirt because I don't want it to be inside the pants, because usually that extra fabric creates all kinds of wrinkles and bumps, and I personally really like the clean look. I like to see only the wrinkles that I want to see, and if there are some extra wrinkles sometimes in the render, it can look kind of weird, even though in real life you would have those wrinkles and that's totally natural, but not always whatever looks natural in real life looks natural in 3D and in the render. So that's why I usually chop off this extra part, because I don't want it to interact with the pants. And especially when putting hand in the pocket, I don't want all these extra layers here. I have 2 pocket bags, and for me that's enough layers. I don't want some extra layers like messing with the pocket and everything. And also the simulation is quite stable when you do that, because once I chop off the extra part, I also attach the hem of the shirt to avatar tape. So I use this surface circumference measure avatar, and I create a measurement line here, and then I use attach to measure function, and I attach the hemline to this measurement line, and then it keeps it stable. It keeps the hemline of the shirt in the same position always, no matter what. So the overall simulation is super stable, and you can change poses and everything, and it's a really good solution, I think. Okay, I will start with the pose part. This step I think is very important when it comes to posing, is really think about what kind of style you want to communicate through your posing. For example, if you're working on more of a formal outfits, like formal suits, it is okay to have pretty stiff poses also when you have hand in the pocket. I usually use a lot of reference images for posing, and I've noticed that when you have suits, even the real human poses tend to look quite stiff. When you work with like streetwear or casual wear, of course the poses are more relaxed. So it's good to decide which direction you want to go, and yeah, get some reference images to help you. As well as another thing that I like to do is to make the pose myself in front of the mirror, and then I really look at how each point of my body is positioned, like the shoulders, the hands, the arms, and all that. Or I ask someone to take a photo, and then I use it as reference. Okay, so once the pose is decided, it's time to create the pose for the avatar. And I will not go into detail how I create this pose. I will do it, but I will speed it up without explanation. There is a video about my process of making poses, so you can have a look at that if you want to see more in detail how I do it. Okay, so I think I've finished like the first try of the pose. Here I think you saw I did a little bit of cheating when it comes to the length of the legs. Sometimes I really like to do a little bit of a kind of rotation in the hip area, and when I do that, then one leg usually ends up shorter than the other one, because then you need to do like some bending in the knee and so on and so on. But I usually don't like to do it, so I just take and adjust the length of the leg by doing this. It's not like the best solution, but usually I don't really care what's happening under the clothes. Very often my avatar looks super deformed, but as long as it looks good when it's wearing clothes, it's fine. Yeah, so here the pose I think is okay, but now I have to just adjust the position of the hands to help the transformation of the pose, because if I leave it as this, whenever the avatar transforms into this pose, of course the simulation will be messed up here. So I will simply bring the hands a little bit to the front, so that there's a gap between hands and the body. And of course I will refine the position and the look of the hands. This is kind of just like the first draft of the pose. Okay, so the pose looks fine. Now I will save as pose. Okay, and now I will go to history, and I saved before this 3D state. This is very useful because you can save several positions of your 3D garment and go back whenever you want. You don't have to do undo 100 times. So I double click on that and it loads the previous state of my project file. Okay, and now I will open the pose. So now it transformed into this pose, and I can do some more refinements. I can adjust the simulations, and not always like the first try looks really good, but it's very good to see it with close. Of course, the impression of the pose really changes. So overall, I think it's fine as it is. And now I can start working on the pockets and the hands. So I will start with this hand, and I need to do some extra prep. So from my experience, what I've learned is that it's really good if this bottom pocket bag is kind of stiff. So this top one I always strengthen, but this bottom one I want to add bond so that it becomes like a really stiff, so that it kind of keeps the pocket together and it doesn't allow a lot of stretch. So here I will use the reinforcement. Under collar it's quite stiff, but I will adjust the stretch. This one I will put on 60, and I will put the buckling ratio to 0 so that it doesn't allow a lot of bend. Okay, that's it. Let it simulate. Okay, so now I will start working on the position of the hand and the fingers. So this is kind of, I would say, most annoying part, because there's a lot of iterations and I have to work a lot with the fingers, and it can get a little bit annoying for sure. But I think that all the effort is definitely worth it. So first is to bring the hand closer to the body. I will rotate it by using the elbow point, something like this. And then I really want to try to make the hand as parallel to the leg as possible. And at this stage I also should decide how deep I want the hand to go inside the pocket. Whether I want, for example, the thumb to be out, or I don't want this part to be seen at all. So it depends on what result you want to see. So yeah, this is the point where to decide it. I think this is a fine position. I might have to improve it later, but good for now. Okay, and now I will adjust the hand rotation and the finger position. I find this part of Avatar's hand quite bulky, and oftentimes I allow it to kind of go inside the body and stay it. Otherwise it creates a lot of space, and I don't want it to stretch out my pocket. So often at times I allow some parts of the hand to go inside the body. That's totally fine. What happens inside, I usually don't really care. As long as it looks good on the outside, I tend to deform the hand quite a lot. Okay, so here I will just work on changing the position of the fingers and trying to make the hand very parallel to the body. And then here one point that I want to mention is that the default position of the fingertips, I think, is quite straight, and usually because of that it tends to stick out from the pocket bag quite a lot. So what I like to do is I like to bend them like this. Of course there's still possibility that they will stick out from the pocket bag, but this helps a little bit. And now I will create a little bit of space between the hand and the body, because as you can see, it does go in the body quite a lot, but I want to still keep some space for the bottom pocket bag. So that's why I will just move, maybe just move the joint like this. Okay. Okay, let's try to see how it goes. So now what I need to do is I need to bring this part of the pant in front of the hand. So I will use the select mesh box tool. But for that, I like to put the pocket bag on top of the front pant part, pattern piece, just because in that case I can select the whole pocket bag and the same selection on the front pattern piece of the pant. Well, you will see. So for that, I select these two corner points, right click, match up, and then it matches up these points. Because the rotation of my pocket bag and the front pant is the same, it works like that, but you can of course also place it manually. The most important part is that it's placed on top of the pant in 2D here. And then I use this tool, select mesh box, and then in 2D window I select this area. And here I have pleats, so I have to be a little bit mindful and select the whole area that creates the pleats. Otherwise, if I select only this part, the inside part of the pleat, and I will bring it out, then this pleat will be messed up for sure. So it's good to select everything like this, and then with the gizmo tool just bring it out and simulate. Okay, doesn't look too bad. Let's see what's the stretch of this pocket. Yeah, so it's stretched out quite a lot. What in this case you can do some fine-tuning, depend on your situation. So I usually don't use elastic because it gathers quite a lot, and then it tends to deform the side seam as well. So if this is gathered quite a lot, then the side seam will start to deform like this. Well, I will show you. I don't know if my explanation makes much sense. So let's say to avoid any stretch of any line, you would usually add elastic with ratio 100, and this is what happens. It stretches quite a lot. So then you have to put additional fine-tuning in this seam, and it could be quite a lot of work at the end. Or you can leave this kind of look if that's fine with you. I usually don't like that kind of look, so I go back and I remove this. But I do add like some strong seam taping, which does gather this line a little bit, but it's not so dramatic. Okay, let me check what's the stretch now. Well, it's less, a little bit less, so it's fine. Okay, so far looks okay. And then if I want to adjust a little bit, I also tend to pull on this bottom pocket bag, because the position of this pocket bag can really help to clean up a little bit the overall simulation of the pocket. Because there are times when the pocket bag really gets stuck in these kind of places where the hand goes inside the avatar. So it's good to kind of pull on it a little bit, and then you can get a cleaner look like this. And now I will do the other hand. So the process here is completely the same. I more or less have decided how far it should go in the pocket. Let me see the pocket bag. Maybe I want to move it a little bit lower like this. Overall position I think is fine, so now I will fine-tune the hand position. Okay, looks fine I think, but now I will create some space between the hand and the body. Okay. And the same step as before, match these 2 points so that the pocket bag is placed on top of the front pattern piece of the pant. Select mesh tool, make sure select the pleat entirely and bring it to front and simulate. Let's check the stretch here. Yeah, there is some stretch happening, so I will bring the hand a little bit inside the body. And also adjusting the position of the inside pocket bag. And yeah, this part, yeah, seems quite stretched out. For that I think I need to add some fine-tuning here. Okay, I'll use this one. I will adjust the stretch here. Yeah, the hip part definitely looks stretched, but it might as well be just my pant. Anyhow, if it's not meant to be stretched, then maybe you need to check the silhouette of the pant or bring the hands more inside the body. That can also help. But then watch out from this type of stuff. And this is my personal preference, but usually when I have more or less this kind of not tight fitted pant, whenever I put something in the pocket, whenever I put hand in the pocket, I like this side line to be really kind of straight and perfect. So often, yeah, I do quite a lot of fine tuning. Maybe I would add another pattern piece to mimic the seam line so that it is kind of more stiff and doesn't create any wrinkle, just to get that very nice straight line here. Yeah, okay, so far looks good. And then we can also check how it looks when you decrease particle distance, because that can also show some new defects or things that need to be improved. But in this case, there's not much difference. Yeah, the back is definitely stretched a lot. So I think the fit of my pant probably is not the best. However, just to show the principle of putting hand in the pocket, I think that worked quite well. And at least from front, it looks perfect. Maybe I don't need the back render, so I don't care what's happening in the back. As long as the front looks great, I'm fine with that. One thing I can show you is another project file. It's basically the same outfit, but I made it a long time ago. And you can see how I deformed the avatar to get the clean look. For example, I wanted to have the pant fall clean like this, and I think at that time this foot was kind of messing up, and maybe something was sticking out, so I just like bent it like this. I mean, it looks horrible, but from outside it looks great. And then also another thing, these folds kept on opening quite a lot, and I think here it's also opening, but not so much. So what I did here, I moved the leg like this to the back. You can see the butt part is kind of deformed, but from the front it looks great. It looks very clean. But I definitely feel like the fit of this pant was not great. That's why I had to kind of deform the avatar's body to make a good look. And look at the hands, they are also not looking that great. Oh, and this gap that I created, I actually filled with a hand. Well, great, that's just great. However, I think at the end it looked pretty well. Yeah, okay, so that's it for the video. Thank you for watching and have a good day. Bye.